Twitter.
Okay, we're going live.
We can't hear Jasmine.
Oh.
Hi, welcome everyone. All right, welcome everybody to today's Ocean Steward. This is the final Ocean Steward Spotlight of 2020, and I'm really happy to be here with Minorities in Shark Science, these wonderful women. Thank you so much for joining us, and we all want to wish you a happy holidays, and thanks for tuning in to this Facebook Live to learn all about this wonderful organization. Ocean Steward Spotlight is a way to highlight ocean stewards from diverse backgrounds, connecting more ocean lovers with stories that may be important and inspiring to them. So my name is Catherine Uden, and I'm the Oceania Southeast Florida campaign organizer. And today we have Minorities in Shark Science again, and we have Jasmine Graham, if you could wave to everybody, and Amani Weber-Schultz, and Jada Elcock. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, so we want to ask you a little bit more about yourselves and beyond the name of Miss and the work that your group hopes to accomplish. Can you tell us something a little bit more personal about yourselves, maybe your defining moment and when and where you might have fallen in love with the ocean? And why don't we start with Amani? Where and when did you fall in love with the ocean? And just tell us a little something more personal.
I'm gonna have to say I fell in love with the ocean at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and so I've been to the aquarium a ton. And I have very fond memories of just being mesmerized of all the different sea animals that they have there. And it's one of my favorite places on the planet.
Wonderful. I can understand. Yeah. I haven't been yet, so I definitely
want
to go.
Cool. You have to
go. All right, Jada, can you tell us about when and where you might have fallen in love with the ocean?
Yeah, so I grew up in landlocked states. I lived in Illinois until I was 10, and then up until this September, I've lived in Arizona, the middle of the desert, so nowhere near the ocean. I remember going to the Shed Aquarium sometimes when I was a kid, but I think I was like really little, and I know that it had an impact on me, but I don't remember it as much as I remember my life in Arizona, like, past 5th grade. So I think a lot of what drew me into like the marine science field was just the fact that I couldn't explore it and I had no information about it. And I would go outside and explore the desert all the time, finding snakes, scorpions, lizards, spiders, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have that opportunity with the ocean. So I watched a lot of, like documentaries and nature shows about the ocean, and a lot about sharks too. And I was like, this is the coolest ecosystem ever. I just want to jump into the middle of the ocean, see what kind of animals I can find. And I was like, sharks are so misunderstood. We should, learn more about them and, try to respect them because they're really important parts of our environment. So that's kind of, what drew me in, was just pure curiosity and then me wanting to help sharks.
That's awesome. So it goes to show you don't have to live by the ocean or grow up by the ocean to fall in love with it and center your life around it. That's great. And Jasmine, where and when did you fall in love with the ocean?
I think I fell in love with the ocean when I was a kid. My family is from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It's where my dad grew up, and we spent a lot of time. And I'm from a military family, so we moved around a lot. So our home base was kind of my grandma's house, which is in Myrtle Beach. And she loved fishing, and so did my dad. And so I grew up spending a lot of time fishing. And I just found it really fascinating. I mean, we were eating the fish, but I also had questions about what the fish were doing, like in general. Why are the fish here? How do we know that they're here? Why do they keep coming back if we keep fishing them? I don't understand. And so I just kind of was very fascinated by this idea of the fish and their lives and how we're able to keep fishing them. And then I started to learn about the declining fish populations, and that was kind of what drove me to want to go into conservation work, because I started thinking, what if we run out of fish? What if my family can't eat fish anymore? That would be sad. And so that's kind of how I got into the marine conservation realm, specifically with fisheries research.
So you're a scientist from a very early age, asking a lot of questions and wanting to find out the answers to everything.
Definitely.
All right, so we know that your favorite sea creature must be a shark because you've centered your life and your organization around it. So we're curious to know which one is your favorite shark and why. And we'll start with Amani.
I'm gonna go with the great hammerhead, mostly because I think the heads of the whole hammerhead family is amazing, but also because I find it really admirable that they continuously eat rays even though they get barbs stuck in their mouth in the process of doing it. And I appreciate their dedication to eating their favorite food.
So have you seen them a lot in the wild? Have you seen
So
gray
I
hammerheads?
have done research like do in the field on them, so I have seen
Yeah.
them in the wild in that regard. Yeah,
Wow, that's exciting. I've seen 2 in my life in the wild.
they're so cool.
Yeah, they're really cool. Jada, what's your favorite shark and why?
I go back and forth between the bonnet head and the thresher shark. I have a feeling that Jasmine's going to talk about the bonnet head, so I'm going to go with thresher shark. I love them because their tail is like half of their entire body length, and it looks so weird to me. But also, they don't just look weird; they use it for hunting. So rather than just chasing something down and trying to bite it, they like swim as fast as they can towards this bait ball of fish and basically use their tail as a whip to stun and kill anything that's in the area, and then they just go through and collect whatever's not moving. And I think that that's just the weirdest way that they could possibly go about hunting, but that's what they've done and have evolutionarily made themselves look so insane, and I can't get over it. I just think they're so cool. Also, they look terrified all the time.
You're right, they are super cool. And Jasmine, are you going to tell us about the bonnet head, or do you have a different one in mind?
I am going to tell you about the bonnet head. Bonnet heads are my favorite shark. This
They're
is a
cute.
known fact. And me and Jada fight over bonnet heads all the time. Sometimes Carly also picks bonnet heads as her favorite shark. It is not a coincidence that in the Miss logo there is a hammerhead. We are very pro hammerhead family here at Miss. But bonnet heads are awesome. One, because they're cute and adorable.
They are cute.
And they're just adorable little sharks. I also think that they're just really cool animals. I mean, they're the only known omnivorous shark. So they eat seagrass as well as crustaceans and fish. And that's just mind-boggling because everyone thinks of sharks as being carnivorous. And bonnet heads are kind of saying, oh, you think that we're all like this, but actually I enjoy my seagrass as well. And so that's really cool to me. And it's also, the hammerhead family is the first group of sharks that I studied, and so it has a lot of nostalgia associated, and bonnethead was the first shark that I ever handled by myself, so I also just really have a really good history with them, and so I love them.
Nice. And I see them a lot down here, especially when I paddle in the Keys. I do stand up paddling and I see so many bonnet heads. They are very, very cute. All right, so I'd like to ask a question for our viewers who want to take action on sharks. What would you say to people who love the ocean, but they don't know what steps they could take to protect it, to protect sharks? What advice would you give to people out there that, want to do something, they see our oceans and our sharks suffering? What can they do, Amani?
I'll just start out by saying helping to get rid of the stereotype that sharks are man-eating animals in the ocean is really important, because a lot of people are really scared of them, and rightfully so because of what you see in the media and how they're depicted in the media, but they're definitely not man-eating killers. You can go in the ocean and you're not going to get bit by a shark. They're not just hanging out waiting for someone to go in just to bite you. But I think in terms of their conservation, it's really important to break down negative stereotypes towards them so that we can start coming up with positive ways to save them instead of talking badly about them.
Very good points. Jada, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess kind of going off of that a little bit, I think that, educating people about sharks, I love science communication. And I feel like there's really no wrong way to go about science communication as long as you are sharing accurate information. So, sharing what you know about sharks and why they're not like these terrifying man-eaters. So I guess, for example, something I love to share with people who may be a little bit more afraid of sharks is you are more likely to be killed by a lightning strike or a vending machine or a cow or a flying champagne cork or a falling coconut than you are to be killed by a shark. It's just, it's a very rare thing that someone gets killed by a shark. That, and I also think that it's important to know where your seafood comes from, because we know that, you know, sometimes fisheries like bycatch is unfortunately a big part of, you know, what's impacting shark populations. So we want to make sure that we're, you know, fishing or using resources from sustainable fisheries. So the Monterey Bay Aquarium has this, the Seafood Watch app, and that's an app you can use to find sustainable seafood near you. So yes, breaking down stereotypes, science communication, knowing where your food comes from. Sharks are great. That's what I got.
Very good tips. All right, Jasmine.
Yeah, so I'll definitely echo everything that Amani and Jada said. I'll also add that a lot of people think about the food that they eat, but there's also a lot of other products that use shark liver oils and things like that, a lot of lotions, cosmetics, things like that. And obviously not everyone has the capability to switch to more sustainable products, but if you do, and that is a privilege that you have access to alternatives, I definitely recommend checking your lotions and your cosmetics to see if they're using shark products, and go for the plant-based squalene versus the shark-based squalene in your products. If that's something that you're capable of doing, that can go a long way. I'd also say that things that affect the ocean affect sharks. So things like pollution, the overuse of single-use plastic. I can't tell you how many Mylar balloons I've pulled out of the Everglades going fishing for sharks. And these are just balloons that are in my direct path. I'm not looking for them. And every time I go, and the Everglades are supposed to be this pristine environment. It's designated critical habitat for the animals that I study, the small-toothed sawfish, for the small juveniles. It's a really important nursery ground, and I pull balloons out of there pretty much every time I go down there, especially if it's around a holiday. There are ways to tell your mother that you love her without getting her a Mother's Day balloon. There are ways to tell your significant other that you love them without getting a Valentine's Day balloon. Because if you do that, I promise you that someone is going to be pulling that balloon out of somewhere, because what goes up must come down. And those things are things that you can do. There are all sorts of alternatives to straws and paper plates and to-go boxes. If you have the resources to use an alternative, you should.
I'm so glad you said all that, because plastic pollution is a very big passion of mine. I've done a million beach cleanups, and like you, I've picked up so much plastic and balloons, and it's a very, very important message. People definitely need to think about that. Thank you. All right, so we usually have two major audiences. We have people that, you know, are very new to ocean conservation. They don't really know what to do. And then we have people that are, you know, more experienced, that have tuned in our ocean conservation community. So for those people that maybe are already years into their professions and already know about conservation, I would like to ask, what's your vision for the ocean conservation community? How would you like to see it grow, change, find new direction or new approaches? How do you think that the ocean conservation community should evolve? Amani, do you have thoughts on that?
Sure. I think that in terms of ocean conservation, and also in terms of any conservation, you have to be making sure that the way you are doing the conserving is not negatively affecting other populations or the area around you. So you could be doing one thing that could potentially be conserving the population that you want to, but it could be negatively affecting another one. And so I think that being hyper aware of how your actions, even if you're trying to have a positive, could have a negative on something else, is really important when it comes to conservation.
Very, very good advice. Thank you for that. Jada.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that, like, being sustainable is like trendy right now. And like, that's wonderful, but we also need to make sure that what we're doing is actually sustainable. Like, there are definitely things that are, you know, gonna be portrayed as being super sustainable and like ocean friendly and whatever else, but maybe aren't necessarily the best, I guess. So for, I guess, the general public kind of way of growing into conservation is, you know, like, make sure that you're doing your research and you're finding the most sustainable things possible. Again, as Jasmine said, like, if that's available to you and that's something that you're able to do. But I guess maybe on the science side, I want to see more, I guess, people of color. I mean, that's what our whole organization is about, is, you know, increasing diversity, because, you know, we exist too. We get excited about these things too, and we belong here as well. So I would love to see, you know, it being more widely accepted, and less, I guess, weird for people of color to be interested in ocean conservation, because it can get very exhausting trying to explain, oh, well, you're interested in this too? I'm like, yeah, of course I am. Like, this is an important matter, and I just, you know, I want to help out too. So, you know, normalizing the fact that people of color are also super interested in this, that's something that I hope to see more in the future.
And that's why your organization is so important. And thank you so much for starting it and for breaking down these stereotypes and making sure that, you know, everybody knows this, and, you know, really being role models for younger people. You know, I'm sure you probably have had, you know, young girls already tell you, you know, that you're the role models, and they're looking up to you, and they think what you're doing is really cool, and you could be inspiring the next generation, right? And again, being aware of greenwashing is definitely very important. People have to be really aware of that nowadays. Jasmine, what's your vision for the ocean conservation
Yeah, I'll
community?
definitely say that what Amani said and Jada both kind of play a lot into what I hope to see for the future. And that's, I want everyone to be involved in conservation. So yes, we want to get people of color involved, but we also need to acknowledge all of the work that was done pre-colonization. Before colonization, indigenous communities were very good stewards of the environment, especially coastal communities in the marine environment. It was built into the fabric of their society. And we should acknowledge that, and we should include their historic knowledge and their generational knowledge in everything that we do, because they were here for thousands of years and they did not collapse the ecosystem. And we've been here for a couple hundred years, and we are totally throwing everything off. So we should maybe think about what they were doing before. And so I think it's really important to include indigenous communities and decolonize the marine conservation arena, and think about, when we're making policies, how they're going to affect other people. Like Amani said, it can throw off other parts of the ecosystem, but it can also throw off our fellow humans. So if we decide to just blanketly go in and tell people you can't do this, and that is their only source of food, we need to provide them with an alternative before we say you can't do this anymore. And I think that it's really easy when people kind of helicopter into places and decide, well, because the rest of the world has messed up, we need you to stop doing what you're doing, even though what you were doing was fine and everyone else is what caused the problem. Now you have to suffer the consequences of someone else's actions, and we're not going to help you out, is not sustainable. And it's also not helpful to demonize people who that's their only source of food and they're just trying to survive. And so I think that we just need to change some of our language and the way that we approach people, so that we're all collaborating together and thinking about a way that we can coexist with the marine animals and with the marine ecosystem in a way that's sustainable for everyone, without demonizing a few groups of people that are already marginalized. That would be my big goal for conservation.
You said that so well. Thank you for that very, very important message. And again, another reason why I'm so glad that you're here doing this Facebook Live with us, because that's an important message, especially closing out 2020 and going into this next year. I wanted to ask you, what is the one ocean area you would want to visit the most? Amani, let's start with you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm super claustrophobic, so technically this would not ever happen, but I would love to go to the bottom of the ocean. I think it would be super cool to just see the crazy animals that live down there, because they all look so weird. But I'm super claustrophobic, so I could never get into like a little tiny submarine and then go, you know.
I think I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, but it would be so cool. So I would love for someone else to like live that dream for me.
If you could lower the anxiety, maybe it would be cool, right?
Yeah.
I agree. Jada, what about you?
This is such a hard question to answer. Okay, I agree. The bottom of the ocean would be like the coolest thing ever, but I've also never been to like anywhere tropical. Would love to see some beautiful tropical fishes, some beautiful reefs, all that stuff. However, the Arctic is also really cool and has a lot of cool animals. Like, there's so many cool. It's not where I want to go, it's what animals I want to see, I think.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to pick one area because I'm like, oh my gosh, the Greenland shark. But also, I want to see hammerheads. Also, hold on, let's go over to the Puget Sound looking at some 7 girls and 6 gills. Like, I can't pick just one area. I just want to see all the animals ever.
It sounds like you would appreciate everything, and that's a good thing, right?
Yes.
All right. Jasmine, what about you?
Okay, if I had to pick one thing, I would say the Arctic. I would love to just explore in the Arctic Ocean. One, because I feel like I've been in this area and I've also explored the tropics. So it's kind of like, all right, we got the temperate, we got the tropic, we need to go to the Arctic.
Just
So
something
it's,
different.
it's just the one that's left. But also I think that I really find it interesting that things live in places that are uncomfortable for me, and arguably I wouldn't be able to survive without a lot of technology helping me out. And I think that's cool. I also want to investigate these sharks that just kind of like live in volcanoes. That's another area that I'm interested
Yeah.
in. Any animal that's living in a place that I'm like, how are you alive? That's where I
Yeah.
want to go.
Awesome. All right, those are excellent answers. All right, there's so much more time that we could, fill speaking with you. We're running a little bit short, but I also want to ask you, what is the most concerning threat that you see to our oceans? Is there something that sticks out as something you're really, really concerned about, Amani?
I think for me, it's just plastic. Like, that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of things that are really negatively affecting a lot of different parts of the ocean. Because you have huge plastic, but then you have microplastics, and the range of species and areas that plastic can get into that it shouldn't be in is terrifying to me. And I think that not enough people care about the fact that plastic doesn't go anywhere. Like, it's all of the plastic you've used is still here on this earth. And if we all had to walk around with like a bag of all of the plastic that we've ever used, none of us would want to do that, and we'd all stop using plastic. But we live in a society where we can just throw our plastic out and then never see it again. And so it's like out of mind, out of sight. But it's really not good for the ocean or for us, really.
Thank you so much for that message. I agree. I'm very concerned about plastic pollution, and I actually could talk about plastic all day. Jada, what do you see as a major concern for our oceans?
I am going to agree with the plastic sentiment, but I kind of want to go broader and just talk about like people that don't care. It breaks my heart. I think people just don't realize how much we're all connected. And the idea of, well, it doesn't affect me is just the most, I guess, like arrogant. It's so frustrating to me. I'm like, okay, it may not directly affect you right now, but it will. Like, and people are like, oh, that won't happen in my lifetime. No, it is happening currently now. Like, all the terrible things that scientists keep telling you about, that's what's going on currently. Like, that's not a 50 years from now thing, And it's so hard because my mom's like, you can't argue with everybody. And I'm like, I just want people to care, Like, stop throwing your plastic in the ocean. Stop throwing your cigarette butts out on the beach just because you're right there. Like, it's not that hard to not just throw stuff into the ocean. I mean, for me at least, you can see how flustered I am. It makes me so sad that some people just don't care, because we are really all connected. People are like, oh, I don't care about sharks because, if they go extinct, that's not going to affect me. It probably will, because they're, some of the apex predators of the ocean, and what happens to them is going to happen to the rest of the ocean, and that's going to come back around to bite us in the butt too. So I just think we all need to remember how much we are connected as an earth, as cliche and cheesy as that may sound. It's true. And we need to be respectful of the other animals that are here, because they've evolved for so many millions of years to get to the point that they're at. Maybe we should respect them enough to let them stay on the earth, Yeah, I just want people to care. I think people not caring is a huge issue that we're running into. That's what I got.
And do you see a big aspect, just because I'm a former elementary school teacher and I believe a lot starts with our youth, do you believe in, one of the ways of making people care is by educating them young and bringing these things into schools young?
Yes, I absolutely do. I always say that like education is the key to conservation, and really like it's true, because you can't expect someone to do something about it if they don't care about it or even know about it. So getting people to care does start young, and I think really, telling children the truth and not trying to sugarcoat things and be like, this is a big issue and we want you to know about it so that you can make the decisions to try and be better. I think that that's very important, and that'll help, the next generation care a little bit more than past generations, I guess.
Yeah, I hope to see this environmental, component more in our schools to help save our planet. It's going to be really important. Jasmine, what do you think?
Yeah, so whenever whenever people ask me what's the biggest threat to sharks, what's the biggest threat to the environment, what's the biggest threat to marine life, I always go short answer, us. So I mean, that's it. Everything goes back to us. And I think that, kind of like what Jada's saying, people think, oh, it doesn't affect me. And whenever people try to have discussions about the environment and they are talking about, oh, we're doing so much damage to the earth, blah, 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 I like to remind them, yes, that's true, but you know what's still going to be here? The earth. Like, you're really just hurting yourself. If you get rid of all of the animals that we've evolved to depend on and that we've built our society on, the people, like the things that are going to suffer are us. Like, we're taking all these other species down with us. But I mean, there are tons of planets in the universe that exist without life. So the earth is still going to be here. It's just going to be like, okay, bye, we're done with you. Human beings have not been here that long. We're not very well adapted. We're actually we got big brains to like solve a lot of our problems, but if all of our technology went down, oh man, we would be extinct like real fast. We are not very helpful organisms. So I'm like, do it for you. If you don't care about the animals, if you don't care about the planet, like, you're going to die. Do you care about that? If you don't have food, that's a problem. And I think I agree with Jada that people think, oh, it's not happening in my lifetime. And I'm like, are you sure about that? I mean, every doomsday movie starts with a scientist going, we should pay attention to that. And then they go, nah,
I love that
it's
quote.
fine.
Yep, exactly.
So I don't know. Whenever people kind of say, oh, it doesn't affect me, I'm like, all right, I guess we're just all gonna go extinct then. That's fine. If that's the choice that you're making, just, I need you to recognize that that's the choice that you're making. You're not deciding, oh, I don't care if this animal dies. You're deciding, I don't care that I die. That's the decision that you're making. So I just like to point that out to people, because it's really easy for people to say, I don't care about pandas. I don't care about fish. Do you care about yourself? Do you care about your children? Do you care about your fellow humans? Then you should do something. Because that's really what it's at. We are the only ones hurting ourselves. No other animals are out here messing up the planet. It's just us. And we're the ones that are going to suffer the consequences. And we're the ones that understand what we're doing, and we decide to keep doing it. So I whenever I watch Fantastic Four, like Doctor Doom, I'm like, I relate to you, dude. Like, I know that you're a villain. Same thing with Thanos. I know that you're a villain, but you make really good points. People are a problem. And I wish that we would just be better. Can we just be better? I just want to live on this planet. I don't want the human race to go extinct. So if you're listening to this and you're not yet convinced, please do it for yourself, do it for your kids, do it for the people that you love. That's all.
And I get discouraged sometimes, but it makes me feel better when I talk to women like you, and I know that I just feel like there's hope out there after hearing that. So thank you very much. All right, so our time has come to an end. We could talk for another half an hour, but it's only until 6:30, sadly. I hope this isn't our last conversation, but thank you so much for joining us. And we just want to make sure before we leave that people know how to find out more about you and your work. We're going to put info now on the screen where people can go here to learn more, make a donation. And before we sign off, can you give any parting words for people watching about your organization and what they should know?
Sure. So Minorities in Shark Sciences was founded to support women of color in shark science. And we have a lot of opportunities that we're already offering in 2021, including weekend workshops for women of color that haven't had a chance to get field experience in marine science, specifically shark science. We also offer internship programs with Bimini Shark Lab and Oceans Research in South Africa. And we're looking to expand into K through 12 outreach to get people excited about shark conservation and ocean conservation while they're young. And if you go to our website, misselasma.org, you can donate. You can find out how you can become a member or a friend of Miss if you don't identify as a woman of color. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Thank you so much. I'm going to tell all of my friends and family and everybody in Facebook world that knows me, if you don't know what to get me for Christmas or my birthday, you can make a donation to this organization in my honor, because I believe in you so much. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that we get to chat again, because I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.